welcome back to the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. I am Gary Parrish. Matt Norlander is here with me. And you can never just enjoy the NCAA tournament because that coaching carousel is always spinning. Just in the past 24 hours, Darren DeVries is the new head coach at West Virginia. Danny Sprinkle is the new head coach at Washington. Mark Byington's the new head coach at Vanderbilt. Cal Smith, the new head coach at Stanford. Deadleg, let's stop right here. It's been a busy little stretch in coaching carousel news. What stands out to you?
I'm begging the college basketball news cycle to slow down and take a minute, please. I'd like to say hi to my children when they get home from school a little bit. Enough. Let's take a pause here. As for the ones that have been hired, I'll be quick on each one here. Darren DeVries was West Virginia's top target for a while. They get their guy. He has been tremendous at Drake. 21 seasons every time he's been there. 6 seasons total, been to 3 tournaments. Tucker DeVries, his son, is expected to go with him to West Virginia. It's a good talent, might earn an NBA paycheck one day, but I think the expectation is that he'll give it a go there in Morgantown, and that's an intriguing one. All of this, by the way, was a waterfall effect from Dusty May picking Michigan. None of these were going to move until Dusty made his decision. Some people thought that Louisville was going to be the pick there. We'll get to Louisville in a second, but he takes Michigan, and now we have the cascading effect. So DeVries to West Virginia, and then we had Kyle Smith. This was done late Sunday. I think they just had to put a few buttons on stuff on the West Coast early Monday morning. Kyle Smith was the target for Stanford going back weeks, and he's making the move because, in part, Washington State's getting downgraded to the WCC, so he keeps a high major job. It makes a ton of sense. I think of all the fits, I think Kyle Smith going to Stanford, of the ones that got done today, I think he is the best one. The question is his steepness, GP. Going to the ACC, other side of the country, it's a hard job. NIL-wise, it's not in the same stratosphere as a lot of other high majors, but I do really, really, really like the hire. Then we had Danny Sprinkle going to Washington. The intrigue there was that Vanderbilt was really, really pushing hard on Sprinkle. He did seriously consider Vanderbilt, but Sprinkle has only, he's been a West Coast guy, has ties to Washington. Dad played football there, and also going to the Big Ten. So we got a couple of movements between guys going into new schools, going into new leagues. But that makes sense, and he has been outstanding. His Utah State team got blitzed by Purdue, but he made the past 3 tournaments at Montana State, and Utah State just won the league. And then Byington to Vandy was the one that kind of swooped in out of nowhere here. Byington was waiting on deck, and that got done with a swiftness on Monday morning. He just had JMU. I mean, we're talking less than 18 hours removed, 16 hours removed from getting just punted out of the bracket by an awesome Duke team. So after a 32-win record season at James Madison, he now has the Vanderbilt job. Was a dark horse pick, winds up getting it there. Solid job overall. And oh yeah, by the way, a Pearl Jam fan. So Mark Byington moving to Music City. That's kind of an instant recap of what we've had here over the past, as you said, less than 24 hours. It has been a whirlwind.
Dusty May, like you mentioned, takes the Michigan job. He could have had Louisville reportedly if he wanted that. Louisville also reportedly targeted Scott Drew. So at the very least, they are moving on to option 3. Where do you think Louisville turns next now that Dusty May has, for all intents and purposes, picked Michigan over the University of Louisville?
All right. I will say a couple of coaches who are not going to get the job. And I think you'll have a thought on it. Because I have not even, frankly, I have barely checked social media all today. It's been just way too busy. But apparently in the past, 24 hours, get Will Wade to Louisville has been a thing. But I've been told that because Louisville is on probation, it's just one, it's not going to pay a super high buyout. So Mick Cronin hasn't been a candidate for a while, but Mick Cronin, Natos, these guys are not candidates, but Sean Miller, Will Wade, anyone that has an issue in their past, Chris Beard, Bruce Pearl, these guys are not Louisville candidates. They're just not. So with that in mind, they are, they're scanning far and wide. Shaheen Holloway at Seton Hall has been looked at. Amir Abdur-Rahim from South Florida has been looked at. Pal Kelsey at Charleston has been looked at. And there are even deeper names. The problem for Louisville right now is that, as we talk GP on Monday afternoon in the 2 p.m. Eastern hour, the only high major jobs left are Louisville, Oklahoma State, and SMU. Vandy's been able to close. Stanford's been able to close. Washington's been able to close. West Virginia, all these other schools, they're getting their guys. And Louisville wants to get it right. They want to get the right guy. But clearly, they were hoping to get either a Scott Drew or a Dusty May, and it just didn't go right for him. It's coming off just the worst run. It's the nadir of the program. And so you have to get the right guy in. I wonder if Steve Lutz at Western Kentucky is a sneaky name that maybe could be possibly in play there as well. It's but I think he's also a real candidate at Oklahoma State as well. But yeah, Louisville's in a tight spot. Not quite. I don't expect movement for Louisville Wednesday at the earliest. I just think the athletic director Josh Harrod is going to take his time and refuses to make a reactionary decision because this is a very big hire for him, and understandably so. Both fan bases in that Bluegrass State GP, they're both really gripping right now for very different reasons.
Yeah, obviously the biggest story in that state, maybe not within the city of Louisville, but around the state, is the future of John Calipari after Kentucky lost to Oakland in the opening round of the NCAA tournament. It's been a rough go for John in recent years. Hasn't made the Sweet 16 since 2019. Hasn't been to a Final Four since 2015. Lost in the tournament to St. Peter's. Now lost in the tournament to Oakland. There seems to be some real thought that his job might actually be in jeopardy, even though the buyout is in excess of $30 million. What do you believe is the latest on the John Calipari situation at UK right now?
My understanding is that Calipari will meet with Mitch Barnhart, the athletic director, no later than Tuesday to just sit down and really have a long, difficult conversation about what's going to happen here moving forward. The two just don't have a healthy, good, strong, friendly relationship. And, that's been the case for a while. It is complicating matters, but that $33 million buyout cannot, like, it has to rely on some of the biggest donors around that program. And from my understanding, like, the people that would be responsible for footing that bill just don't have an interest in paying as much as 33 million to allow John Calipari to just walk off with the bag and needing a semi to get it out of Lexington. So if that can't be resolved, if it can you get it down to, say, 20 million? He's a UK ambassador. I still think he wants to coach. Maybe long shot SMU, trying to make it. SMU has tons of money. I don't know if that's an escape route or not, but it has been suggested to me by two different people, like, long shot. But if there was an escape, like, maybe that could be done. Who knows, right? But if short of that, if with Cal staying, I don't think it's healthy for the long-term outlook of the program, the fan base. It's really toxic, and it's not going to ever get better. He has reached a point where the next thing that goes wrong, it's a firestorm, GP. And so I would expect significant staff changes if he stays. It is wait and see. Privately, I think they'll have more clarity within 48 hours on where things stand with Cal at Kentucky.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who believe, for the reasons you pointed out and others, that ultimately he will return as Kentucky's coach, but under incredible pressure from the fan base and obviously real job pressure. If he didn't have a fabulous season next season, then I think everybody would agree it's got to be over. But my experience with these types of situations is exactly as you laid it out. When it gets so toxic, this toxic, you never get it back. It never gets back to where you had it before or where you'd like it to get. You can put that stuff off. You can put it off for a year or two. But once you reach the point where John is at right now at Kentucky, then your next bad year is your last one. And it doesn't matter if it's next year or the year after or the year after. Your next bad one, you can't survive it. Tom Crean at Indiana was a great example of this. He was on the hot seat. They were ready to get rid of him. The fans had sort of clocked out on it for a variety of reasons. And it was like, okay, if he has one more bad season, then we're going to do something about it. And he won the outright Big Ten title. So they couldn't do anything about it. Like, what, you can't fire a guy who wins an outright Big Ten title. That's outrageous. So they keep it. And then the next year, OG Anunoby gets hurt. They struggle. Boom. They get him just like that. Less than a year after winning an outright Big Ten title, they fired him because they wanted to do it. And then they put it off. And then they said, okay, but the next time we get an opportunity to do it, we're jumping on it. And that's what they did. This will be the exact same thing. If John Calipari is coaching at Kentucky in the 2024-25 season, he might be great. I'm not here to predict otherwise. But if he isn't, it'll be over. And even if he is, if he's not also great the following year, then it'll be over. And if even if he is the following year, if he's not great the year after that, then it'll be over. His next bad year is the last one, and that's just a hard way to do a job.
Agreed, but people were thinking that the next bad year, meaning this, or the next bad ending, would be the last one. I also don't know who can. They have to figure out who would replace John Calipari, and at some point, it's got to be someone. And just because if and when you lose Cal, if it's next year, the year after, if it's 4 days from now, who the heck knows? Someone's going to take that job, and you eventually have to be able to turn the page. It just has reached. It's reached a very problematic point. In addition to the fact that a lot of the roster this season is going to move on. There's just and talking to one person, there's a real sense of just squandered opportunity. They keep losing postseason games. Winning SEC tournament games really, really matters to the Kentucky fan base. And Cal I think he's 2-6 in the past 4 SEC tournaments, or past 6, 2-6 in the postseason the past 4 years overall. It's a problem. And like Reed Shepherd, mom and dad played at Kentucky, from Kentucky, one of the most talented players from that state to ever commit and play for Kentucky. And it could have been this awesome family legacy story, and instead it ends like this. Now, he's probably going to go pro, because why wouldn't you? He's projected to be a top 10 level pick. And so it's just a feeling of like, Antonio Reeves came back and he was one of the best players in America, and look what it got us. Rob Dillingham, he never started like Reed Shepherd. Look where it got us. DJ Wagner, highly touted recruit. There was just a lot of like stop and go, stop and go, stop and go, and that's piling onto the years of frustration with all this. It will be intriguing to see what Kentucky decides to do. Again, I'm going to repeat what I told you on the Thursday night tournament reaction pod when we were talking about Kentucky losing to Oakland. If Calipari stays and remains as the coach of Kentucky, the only reason that will be the case, the only reason, is because they cannot get the money or come to a conclusion where they want to pay him that much to no longer coach there. If this buyout, in my opinion, was $15 million, I think this would be just about done at this point. But it's not. It's more than double that.
We'll be back on CBS Sports Network on Thursday. By then, I assume we'll have some clarity on the John Calipari situation at Kentucky. And if so, we'll discuss it then. For now, let's get back to the games. When we come back, we got Thursday games to look forward to, Friday games to look forward to. What are the biggest ones on the schedule? We'll discuss that next. It's the Eye on College Basketball podcast. We're on CBS Sports Network.